Hello, happy Wednesday. Welcome to this month's live. I'm so happy to be here. My name's Jessica. I'm one of the singer ambassadors. And we're doing a whole summer and fall of lives once a month, the second Tuesday of every month at 2 o'clock Central Time. So the past couple lives we've been doing some crafts. I made some shorts on the last one, and then the time before that an apron. So if you want to go back and watch some old ones, they're all on YouTube. But today is maybe the most exciting one of all. I'm so excited to get down to basics a little bit and talk about setting up your machine. So you might be new to sewing, or you're thinking about buying a machine, or you're not really sure if you want a mechanical or a computerized machine. I have both behind me. And so I just want to talk about how to set it up, what to do with the length, the width, the tension of your machine, how to thread it. Maybe you're wondering why your machine keeps getting tangled. So I'm going to talk a little bit about troubleshooting some problems that you might run into. And it's going to be really fun. And I'm also going to show a little bit of the differences between this Singer Quantum Stylist 9960, which is computerized, and this Singer Heavy Duty 4432, which is a mechanical machine. So they're a little bit different, but they're both great in their own way. I'm gonna pin a comment real quick. Okay. Oh, pin. Okay. All right, so who's ready to get started? If you're watching live, let me know. Are you new to sewing? Are you wondering how to set up your machine? If you have any questions at any point, feel free to type them in the comments. I will try my best to answer them, but if I can't, go ahead and DM Singer Sewing Company, and we'll get back to you later with maybe a better answer than the one that I would give. So, all right, let's get started. Okay, so step one, Kathy from Texas has joined. Hi, Kathy. Hello, everyone. Okay, step one, sewing, threading your machine. Now, this could be a daunting task for some. I used to be really intimidated by it, but especially on newer machines like these ones, threading your machine is so simple. So I'm just going to show you the whole process of threading the Quantum Stylist, which is almost the same as threading the heavy duty. So let's start with thread. So I'm using all-purpose polyester thread, which is great for any light to medium weight woven fabric, even some knitted fabrics that are stretchy. Because this polyester thread has a little bit of stretch to it, a tiny bit, it can also work for stretchy fabric. But if it's really stretchy fabric, you're going to want to get some stretch thread. But all-purpose polyester thread is really great for most garments, things like that. So that's what I'm going to be using. This sewing machine takes a class 15 bobbin. I think that's what it's called. But check your owner's manual to be sure what type your machine takes, because you do not want to use the wrong bobbin for your machine, or else the tension might be completely thrown off. So, hello from Northern Ireland. Wow, where is everyone else from? Yes, Kathy, you are so right. Putting the bobbin in the right direction is very important. Okay, let's just get into it. I'm gonna stop talking. So, we have our polyester thread. I'm gonna bring it over to my sewing machine. We have our spool pin right here. This is a horizontal spool pin, but you can also insert a vertical spool pin if your thread needs a vertical spool pin. And that comes in your little compartment here. It comes with the sewing machine. So first we need to load our bobbin. So I'm going to put my thread onto my spool pin, and always put the spool cap on. This also comes with the machine. This is going to help keep the thread all in one place and not move around while you're threading. So this is why threading your machine is one reason why it's so easy with Singer machines. There is a beautiful thread guide here. So it has little diagrams. You have to look really closely on your machine, and it shows with little numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's going to be how you load your bobbin. So you're just going to follow that thread guide, and it's so simple. Syria, Bermuda, Jamaica. Hello, thank you for joining us. Okay, so I'm going to start bringing my thread through those guides. And with practice, you get super quick at this. I used to struggle a little bit, but not anymore. Okay, so if you look, there are little holes on your bobbin, so you're going to want to put the thread through the hole on the top and just pull the slack and stick it right into the bobbin pin thing. Okay, so once it's on there, you just flip it to the right, and as you see on the screen, that engages the bobbin loading thing. The bobbin loading. Okay, so now I'm just gonna pull tightly on this, and I'm just gonna press down on my foot pedal that I have plugged in, and I'm just gonna start winding my bobbin. And once what I just wound is buried underneath a little bit of thread, I can cut that slack. So let me get my scissors, and I'm gonna cut it flush to the bobbin. So just cut that slack off. You can throw it in the trash. And now the hard part is done. So now we just press on the foot pedal and keep winding all the way. Something really nice about the Quantum Stylist is it actually stops when the bobbin is completely full. I'm just going to stop it a little early. But if you're using a machine that doesn't automatically stop, you just want to stop it right when it starts hitting that little metal piece on the side. Once you hear it start to hit that metal piece, you'll know that it's full. So this is what it should look like, a nicely wound bobbin. Okay. So I'm just going to thread my top needle. Oh, let me read these comments. Hello from Oregon. You also have the Quantum Stylist. How do you like it? And what are you making with it? I have made some beautiful garments with it, and I am in love. Okay, so once you've threaded your bobbin, you can pull that thread out of that contraption there. And just thread the top needle, just however your thread guide is guiding you to do it. One big thing, cannot stress this enough, you want to make sure your presser foot is up when you're threading. So presser foot up, you see that little red light, presser foot down. On the Quantum Stylist, it turns green. That just means you're good to go, the presser foot is down. But when the presser foot is up, what that does is it opens up the tension discs in your sewing machine, which allows the thread to slide right into the tension discs so that your tension works perfectly while you're sewing. Because tension is maybe your issue if you're coming out with bird's nests, a lot of tangles in your seams. It could be tension, so make sure your presser foot is up. Okay, so presser foot is up. I'm just going to keep bringing it through here, up here. And I'm going to spin the hand wheel until, oh, never mind. Ignore that. Okay, so I'm going around 4. I'm going around 5. And then the Quantum Stylist has an automatic needle threader, which is an amazing feature. Especially if you maybe struggle with seeing things up close, the automatic needle threader is a lifesaver. Okay, and now I'm going to put my bobbin in. So you want to make sure that the bobbin is facing to where it's the shape of a P. So I don't know if this is reversed, but it should be the shape of a P. If you forget, just say P for perfect. That's what I always say, and I never forget. So you're going to drop that in. This is a top-loading bobbin holder. Some older machines might have a bobbin loader right there, but a lot of the newer machines have a drop-in one, which is so much easier. So I'm just going to put my finger on that, give it a little bit of tension while I slide it into that groove. Now I'll put my little cap back on. And now all that's left to do is we just need to bring this bobbin thread up. So I'm going to just press down on this little up down button and pull on the top thread until we get a loop. Once you see a loop, you're just gonna grab that loop, and now both of our threads are up. So I'm just gonna put them to the back. You always wanna leave like a 3 to 4 inch tail of thread. As you can see, I just left this little tail of thread here. And that really helps as you're in your sewing process so that the needle doesn't come unthreaded. You always need to leave a tail. Okay, how many stitches? Yes, this Quantum Stylist has so many stitch options, as you can see. A ton of great utility stitches. All the utility stitches are right here along the side. So these are like the most used stitches. So we have a straight stitch, we have our zigzag that's really great for stretchy fabrics. We have our blind hem stitch. And then what is that? Oh, that's the overcast stitch. So if you don't have a serger, an overcast stitch is a really great way to finish the edges of your fabric. And then at the bottom we have the buttonhole stitch. And then this one also has a ton of decorative stitches and also letters. So if you are into embroidery or monograms, you can do so many things with the 9960. I'm really leaving out this one right now. I promise there are so many great things about this one, which I'll tell you in a minute. But, okay. I have tried, I've done a little embroidery. Not very much, but yeah, it's beautiful. And it comes with, let me show you, comes with a ton of attachments. So it has all of these different feet. This is a really great embroidery foot, and it helps you do free motion sewing. So all of these attachments came with the Quantum Stylist. And my light turned off. There we go. Okay, we're moving on. So we got threading our machine. Threading the machine on the heavy duty is almost the exact same. The thread guide is just like a little bit different. And yeah, it's pretty standard. But if you look on the Singer website at your machine, there are, to the right side, there are a ton of helpful videos like threading your machine and setup and all the accessories, and really helpful if you have just purchased one of these machines. Okay, so now that our machine is threaded, I'm going to talk a little bit about stitch length, stitch width, and tension. So those three things are pretty standard and universal for every sewing machine, even like really old-fashioned ones, newer ones. If you have a basic understanding of length, width, and tension, then you can pretty much accomplish anything, as well as if you have a straight stitch and maybe a zigzag stitch capability, which obviously these have much more than just those two, but those are the bare minimum, and you can do so many fun things. So let's just talk a little bit about length. So I have a sample here, and this is so hard to see. Wow, okay, so this length was set on like a 1, which is very, very, very small. And they're actually in millimeters. So that's 1 millimeter, and it's really tight together, tightly sewn together. This was about a 2.5, which is standard. So 2.5 is what I usually have my stitch length set at. And that's what these machines come factory set at, because that's pretty universal for most lightweight to medium weight fabrics. You'll be using a 2.5 stitch length. And then this stitch length was as far up as it will go, which is really, really wide. So that is good for a basting stitch, also heavier weight fabric. So you'll want to change your stitch length. Let me show you on this dial. It's a little bit easier to understand on the dial. So this is the stitch length knob. We have the buttonhole right here. So if you're doing a buttonhole, you're going to want to switch it there. 1 is very, very narrow. I've never used 1. 2.5 is what it's usually at. And then of course, if I'm doing like a basting stitch, if I'm wanting to like temporarily hold a seam together to try it on and see how a garment fits, or just something that I plan on taking out later, I'll do a basting stitch, which is just the longest stitch length possible. So on the heavy duty, you also have S2 and S1, which these buttons just correspond to these red and blue different stitch selections here. So these are just additional stitches. So you get all these stitches with the heavy duty. So when would you lower the stitch length? If you're sewing a lightweight fabric, or if you're maybe going around like a curve, or if you want a stitch to be really reinforced, something like a crotch seam in a pair of pants, like if there's going to be any sort of pulling on it, you're going to want to use like a little bit thinner of a stitch length. And then when would you make it longer? If you're sewing a heavier weight fabric, or if you're doing a basting stitch. Those are just some examples. Of course, there's a lot more, but those are just the basics. Okay, do we have stitch length? That was fun. Okay, now let's move on to stitch width. So width is going to be, sometimes it's up here, or on a computerized machine, you kind of have to click into the settings a little bit to find your width. That is the width. And on the Quantum Stylist, it's actually really cool because it highlights. So as I said, 2.5 is the standard stitch length, and it gives it like a black square when it's at its standard length. And then if you can move it up and down, and then if you're like, wait, what was the standard? You just look for the black square, and that is the factory set, kind of universal setting. So you can always remember what settings you should probably be at on the Quantum Stylist. And on the heavy duty, you just twist the little knobs and find what you want. So stitch width, this really depends on if you're doing a zigzag stitch or a decorative stitch. If you're doing a straight stitch, you really just keep this at 0. But if you don't have a needle position dial, which if you can tell, when I move this dial, it moves my needle to the right and to the left. If you don't have that dial, you can just turn the stitch width knob, and it will also move your needle to the right and to the left. So if you ever have a project that you're working on where you need to move the needle really close to the edge, like if you're top stitching or edge stitching, then you can just use the width knob. So this width knob, let me show you. So this zigzag stitch was sewn at a 1, which is very narrow zigzag. This was a 2.5, which again is pretty standard, and this was as wide as it would go. So you just figure out what it is that you're trying to accomplish, what exactly you're sewing, and choose your width accordingly. Super easy. Okay, the last thing with these knobs is tension. So tension is everything. Tension, I feel like, is kind of an overlooked topic, but a lot of sewing machine issues or like stresses that you might have at the sewing machine all come down to tension. And not necessarily that your tension dial is off, but that when you're threading your machine, that all affects the tension. So if your machine is threaded wrong, then the tension will be off. If you're using the wrong bobbin, then the tension will be off. What else? Yeah, so a tension that I normally keep it at is 4 to 5. This light really keeps turning off. Okay. There's a dark cloud going over Nashville at the moment. It's really dark here. So a tension that I keep it at is around 4 or 5. So if, hold on a sec here. You might want to change the tension though if your threads look off. So let me show you an example. I've been waiting all day for this part. I'm going to draw a picture. So a sewing machine, as we know, has a top thread, which is the one that we threaded up here, and it also has a bobbin thread, which is the one on the bottom. So these threads are gonna go, so the top thread is going up and down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Okay, and then the bobbin thread is coming from the bottom. And what they're doing is they're linking perfectly. Ooh, this is squiggly. Okay, not perfect, but they're linking perfectly right there, which these spots should be right in the middle of your fabric. So say your fabric is running, picture that being a straight line, your fabric is running straight through there. So you should not see the top thread on the bottom of the fabric, and you shouldn't see the bottom thread on the top of the fabric. So if you do see that, let's do a little trial. Kathy said needle type for type of fabric. Yes, we are getting to that, Kathy. I'm going to talk about needles in just a moment because that is also huge when you're new to sewing. So let's do a little sample on the heavy duty. So I'm going to take some fabric squares. Picture these being right sides together, which is what most garments are sewn. They're usually sewn right sides together. So I'm going to set this tension really loose at like a 1. And we're just going to see how this looks. I've also put a different color in the top thread than in the bottom thread so that we can really see this visual. So let's just do a really loose example here. Hold on. Oh, oh my gosh. Okay. It wasn't set at this S1. We're just gonna put that back and pretend like that didn't happen. Okay. Let's start over. I'm gonna cut that. Silly me. Okay, here we go. Let's see what this looks like. Oh, I'm seeing something. Okay, so on the bottom, it looks pretty crazy. You can't really see that, but the top thread is red and it looks pretty good, but on the bottom you can see both colors, which remember, you only want to see the bottom thread color on the bottom. So since you can see some of that red, it means the tension is off. And it's also really, really tight. Like it just doesn't look right. So we are going to now make it all the way as, righty-tighty. Okay, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. We're gonna make it as tight as it will go and see what that looks like. Okay, honestly, it doesn't look that bad. It doesn't look that bad, but it definitely doesn't look perfect. So as you can see, you could still see a little bit of two colors there. And it just kind of looks like it wants to pucker a little bit. So that's a sign that it's a little bit too tight. Okay, Kathy sees it. All right. I think we get tension. Moving on from tension. So different stitch selections. So as you can see on both of these machines, this one has, I'm not exactly sure how many stitch selections this has, but all of these around the wheel, and of course you can do a ton of different applications with each stitch. So like for example, for a straight stitch, you can join a seam with it, you can do a top stitch with it, you can do an edge stitch, an under stitch, a stay stitch, all kinds of different stitch applications with each stitch. So you can get real creative with each of these stitches So a straight stitch is what you're gonna most likely use if you're joining a seam on a woven fabric. So let's talk a little bit about fabric real quick. So here's an example of a woven cotton. So this is a pair of shorts that I made, and it's not very stretchy. It does not have much give, but of course it's the cotton that we all love, and it's a woven. So then we also have a knitted cotton, which is this t-shirt. Stretchy t-shirt, and it's 100% cotton. So the construction of each of these is very different, and that's really gonna affect how you're gonna sew each of these. So if I'm sewing a woven cotton, I'm gonna use a universal needle. I'll show you that in just a sec. And I'm gonna use a straight stitch. But if I'm sewing a knitted cotton like this, where it's stretchy, I'm gonna wanna use a ballpoint needle and a zigzag stitch, or this little stitch that looks like a lightning bolt right there. That one is really, really great for stretchy fabrics. Zigzag stitch works. Even, where's an example? A reinforced straight stitch, which is a 6 on this, is really great for stretchy fabrics that need to be really reinforced. So like spandex, it's really tight fitting. You're gonna want it to be really reinforced. So you'd wanna use a reinforced stretch stitch. So just kind of figure out how stretchy it is. You wanna make sure your threads will not break. So if I used a straight stitch on this, it would probably break the minute I stretch it. That's why a zigzag stitch is always best for stretchy fabrics. And of course, each machine offers a ton of different zigzag stitches dependent on what you're trying to accomplish. This is the 4432 heavy duty. I love it. I love it. This machine is super, super versatile. It can sew anything from silk to leather. It is so versatile. If you saw 2 months ago on the live, I made this heavy duty work apron out of like different types of canvas and this pleather. There were layers upon layers of these heavy duty fabrics, and they went through this machine like nothing. So just like its name says, the heavy duty is really great for heavier duty fabrics. Yeah. Okay, so we got fabric. I briefly talked about needles, so let me just mention needle sizes and needle types are really important when it comes to sewing. So each machine comes with a little pack of universal needles. This was my pack, and it comes with a few different sizes. So the 90/14, I believe, is the most common one that I use. And fun fact about needle sizes, if you ever see them and you're like, why is it 2 numbers like this? 80-12, 90/14, 100/16. The European sizes are on the left and the American sizes are on the right. So the European sizes range from 60 to 110, and then the American sizes range from 8 to 18. So the smaller the number, the smaller the needle, the bigger the number, the bigger the needle. So 90/14 is what I use for most medium weight fabrics, and that's what I sew with most of the time. A lot of cotton, linen, just everyday garments that I'm gonna wear are pretty medium weight, and I use a 90/14 needle. But if I'm sewing something really fine, like chiffon, I'm gonna wanna use a sharper, thinner needle, so maybe like a 70 or something like that. And then if I'm sewing denim or something really thick, I might wanna use like a 100. Get crazy with it. So those are the universal needles. They're sharp, they're good for a ton of different woven fabrics. When it comes to knitted, it's a little bit different of a ball game. So knitted, as in these stretchy t-shirts that I showed you, they require a different needle because the fibers are different and they're loops instead of like threads woven at a 90-degree angle. It's like little loops looped together. So you're going to need a ballpoint needle or a stretch needle. And these will actually, instead of cutting through the fibers, they'll like separate the fibers and go through them. So they won't cause like runs in the fabric, and they'll sew them better. So you're going to need a ballpoint or a stretch needle for stretchy fabric. Ballpoint is what I typically use. Stretch would be good for extremely stretchy elastic fabric like spandex or swimwear, but like for a t-shirt or something like jersey cotton, I would use a ballpoint needle. Okay, we got the needles down. Also, it's super easy to change a needle. You should change them every 8 hours of sewing or every 3 full bobbins that you use, because that can cause runs in your fabric. It can cause a lot of problems while you're sewing if you use a dull needle. So you want to make sure you're using preferably Singer brand sharp new needles. Does anyone have any questions? Let's see if I missed anything. Oh, I could talk a tiny bit about the accessories that come with each of these machines because they're a little bit different. So as I showed you, the Quantum Stylist comes with a ton of different presser feet and all these little gadgets. Actually, the heavy duty also came with these little gadgets, such as a seam ripper, which if you're new to sewing, the seam ripper will be your best friend, and there is no shame in that because there is no such thing as mistakes. If you have a seam ripper, you just rip it out and start again. No one will ever know. We also have a vertical spool pin. So both of these machines have horizontal spool pins, but depending on the thread that you're using, some threads actually require a vertical spool pin. So you're going to want to stick that in there and put your thread right there so that it comes off from the side as opposed to from this side. You also have this little tool that looks like a screwdriver. That is what it is. It's a screwdriver. It takes the little plate off if you ever need to like clean your machine or... Wait, no, that's not what this is for. I think this is for changing the needle. This is definitely for tightening the needle. It might also fit on the screws. Shouldn't have brought that up because I don't actually know what that does. This is a mini spool pin. This is going downhill fast. Okay, this is a mini thread cap thing. So if you're using a tiny little thread, you're going to want to use this mini one. But if you're using a big one, just use the big spool cap that came on your machine. And then, of course, there are so many fun feet that come with, specifically the Quantum Stylist comes with a ton of accessories, but you can purchase any of these on the Singer website. A lot of the ones that I use most frequently are the rolled hem foot. This is the darning and embroidery foot. We have a zipper foot. This also came with the heavy duty. And an overcast foot. So if you don't have a serger, obviously you want to finish the raw edges of your fabric to give it a professional look. So an overcast stitch using an overcast foot is perfect for that, and it will give a really professional finish. We also have a blind hem foot. And what else? This little button foot for attaching buttons. And of course we have the buttonhole foot. This little guy works wonders. So have a great day, and we will see you next month for a really exciting live on the second Tuesday of next month. Okay, have a great day. Bye.